This is why your country.
President Joe Biden's own Border Patrol officers were caught using whips on Haitians who are attempting to seek asylum. And this is after, of course, their country was devastated by a 7.2 magnitude earthquake last month, which was just a month after the president was assassinated. Now, I'll have a video coming up that discusses more on this. But first, let me just quickly show you a couple of these images. So this was shared here by Sawyer Hackett. Tweets this out: Border Patrol is mounted on horseback, rounding up Haitian refugees with whips. This is unfathomable cruelty towards people fleeing disaster and political ruin. The administration must stop this. Taking a closer look, these images are just wild. Now, I'm going to have, as I said, a video discussing more on this, but first, a couple of reactions here to these images. John Edwin Mason here tweeting out, "One hell of a photograph. So many layers, 400 years of settler colonialism, white supremacy, racist immigration policies, imperialism, and racial violence in a single photo." Harsha Walia here, quote tweeting that, saying when U.S. Border Patrol formed in 1924, its agents were recruited from Klansmen and paramilitary Texas Rangers who, as Kelly Little Hernandez details, quote, battled indigenous groups, chased down runaway slaves, and settled scores with anyone who challenged the Anglo-American project. And clearly, that sentiment still exists within the Border Patrol. Now, the White House has reacted to this, at least the press secretary. So White House here saying possible use of whips on Haitian migrants is horrific. Press Secretary Jen Psaki said she can't imagine what the scenario is and where that would be appropriate. So of course they're going to, outright reject this because it's horrible. The images, the video is just absurd. But it isn't just about what's happening at the border. And, they could claim maybe, a couple individuals doing this. It's about their entire approach here to these Haitians who are seeking refuge. So more here from The Cut. Despite President Biden's promises to take a more humanitarian approach to immigration than his predecessor, his administration deported more than 300 Haitian asylum seekers on Sunday and plans to expel many more. In recent weeks, nearly 14,000 refugees have set up camp in the Texas border community of Del Rio, and Haitian authorities believe all of them will be expelled from the U.S. The U.S. government is able to quickly expel migrants without giving them a chance to file their asylum claim because of a Trump-era CDC rule called Title 42. The directive, which was established in March 2020 and overrides all other federal laws, uses an obscure 1944 public health statute to justify indefinitely closing the border to non-essential travel, even though the statute had never been used to regulate immigration before. So here you have Joe Biden using a Trump-era CDC rule to deport these asylum seekers. And that same rule, by the way, Kamala Harris was one of the senators who signed an open letter criticizing the policy. Back, of course, when Trump did it. But now she's the VP under Joe Biden and has no issue with this. Or at least, obviously can't voice any issue that she may have with this because she is giving into what the administration wants to support here. Now, let me play for you this video, this report from Al Jazeera. Sawyer Hackett here tweeting out just what is said on the video, as you'll see. Quote, "This is why your country's shit." A Border Patrol agent screams at a Haitian as he almost runs down a child with his horse. Watch this video.
This is how one US Border Patrol officer received Haitian migrants crossing the Rio Grande, coming back with food to a camp they've set up in Texas.
Hey, you use your women? This is why your country. Because you use your women for this.
You go, no, that way. Hey, no.
We've got our families inside, dying of hunger. We've had to go out to buy food.
You can see the tense scenes here. The Border Patrol are trying to stop people getting back into the camp after they went across to Mexico to get food, they say, because there isn't enough food for them actually there in the camp. There's more than 12,000 migrants, mostly Haitians, in the camp that sprung up in Del Rio, Texas, over the last 2 weeks. They want asylum, but US authorities are overwhelmed. This is just the latest flashpoint in a months-long surge of people illegally crossing the border, and there's little in the camp for them.
Sanitary products? There aren't any. Food? There isn't any either. They don't give you anything.
We met Nicholas on the Mexican bank of the river, searching for food and medicine for his family. He hadn't realized until we asked him about it that US authorities are also now flying Haitians back home.
There's planes now going deporting people. What do you think about that?
What kills me about that is that everyone knows what we Haitians are going through. There's no president. Crime is high. Students can't go to school. There's no work. The economy is down. People can't put up with that. Deportation is not good for us.
Like many others, he said he'd suffered to get this far, on a journey through South America, past gangs and through a patch of jungle called the Darien Gap, notorious for rape and robbery. It was really difficult. I saw a lot of us who died, he told me. Now he's touched ground in his promised land, the US, but it looks unlikely he'll be able to stay there. In the rush for food, we didn't see him make it back across the river into Texas. And by the afternoon, Mexican security forces were patrolling the river too. It was getting even tougher.
Mexican authorities have opened the dam further upstream, which they do quite regularly, but all it means is that these people are now struggling even more to get across. The water's a lot deeper here. It's just another obstacle and another danger for them as they try and get into the United States. John Holman, Al Jazeera, Acuna.
So all credit to Al Jazeera for putting together that report, for being on the ground, covering this properly, showing you what these Haitian asylum seekers are going through. And I was pleasantly surprised by this in terms of the U.S. media. So here you have, forgetting her name for a second, April Ryan of CNN, asking this question, a great question, to Jen Psaki.
No matter whether it's the people who left, the Haitians that left in 2010 and traveled to South America and now trying to travel here, or the ones who left after this earthquake, either way, what is there for them to go back to when these planes are taking them back? The nation is in unrest. The president was assassinated. There are gangs that people are scared of. Democratic rule is not necessarily in place. The people are calling, particularly those here in this nation, are calling for the elections not to be held, on time because of unrest there. And then you also have the issue of the earthquakes. So what is there to go back to? What are you deporting them back to?
Well, April, I will say that our objective and our focus is not only in implementing current immigration policies. We have also been working to provide a range of assistance, working closely with officials from the government as individuals are going back to Haiti, to provide a range of financial assistance, to provide a range of technical assistance. That is ongoing. And we certainly support and want to be good actors in supporting Haiti during a very difficult time, as you noted, with a government that is still working to get back to a point of stability with recovery from an earthquake. And that's why we have a range of programs, options, as well as financial support in place.
All right, so great question there from April Ryan of CNN, and horrible answer from Jen Psaki, just doing whatever she can to avoid actually answering the question. And I mean, that's her job, so it isn't really her fault. But here you have a situation where there is just a complete lack of humanity. And being able to understand that should be the job of a Democratic White House. Joe Biden doing the exact same thing that Trump would do, even using a Trump-era rule to do what he is doing in terms of these deportations, shows you, at least on this issue, there really isn't much of a difference. So it's good to see the media here going after this and asking these sorts of questions, just as they did under Trump when he was doing similar moves. So at least in this one instance, they're doing it. So I hope that pressure continues, because this is just... it's completely disgusting to see humans treated this way. And apart from the obvious, when it comes to the whips, even just the deportations, and you have people here fleeing devastation, just simply wanting a life for their family and not accepting these asylum seekers as they are legally inclined to do.